Shalom, family. Peace to the tribes. Happy Sabbath. Happy Saturday. Hope your day is filled with enlightenment and joy and peace for real. It's your boy, uh, Pastor Ghetto. and man, we here, man. This is his Church of the Ghetto Gospel. We here, the Church of the Ghetto Gospel. As always, if you need to get in touch with me, the email is the email is the email. The Cash App is the Cash App is the Cash App. The email is the email is the email. Tap in with me, tap in with me, tap in. If you need to touch base, I am here. I do this humbly, humbly, in hopes of, enlightening and inspiring and, energizing a few souls that may be having a weary day. So we're going to continue with Genesis 16. And just in case we need it, I don't know if we will, but I have the original 1611 King James Bible here as well, just as a cross reference, just so people could say, oh, I'm really making sure we have the correct transliteraries going on. So I don't want anybody to feel like I'm out here playing with it, because that is not my intention at all. While I do make jokes, while I also do make some interesting claims in regards to the history, I take all of this very serious, and I hope that shows in the way I present and the level of scholarship I hope to bring to the discussion and to our studies together. So let's dig in, man. So Genesis 16:1. Now Sarah, Abram's wife, bare him no children. She had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. Um, and Sarai said unto Abram, Behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid, that uh, I'm over here destroying this. Let me start over, guys. Genesis 16:1. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened unto the voice of Sarai. So because Abram did what his wife wanted, it caused a whole kerfluffle, man. Let's keep reading. Genesis 16:3. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her unto her husband to be his wife. Simple enough. You're not having children. You want to bear some seeds. You say, handmaid, be a wife to my husband, that I may extend the family line through you. She obliges, and then things go left. And he went in onto Hagar, at his wife's request. You mad at him for doing what you told him to do? That was being a good husband. What's going on here? All right, we continuing on, man. And she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. So the spiciness started, because now Hagar starting to, she's feeling herself a little bit. She's feeling good about her position, her status, because now she knows, hey, I'm important here. I'm bearing the heir of such an important man. I'm I'm more valuable to the situation than originally was intended. But here we go. And Sarai said unto Abram, My wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid into thy bosom, and I have given my maid into thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judged between me and thee. But Abram said unto Sarai, Behold, thy maid is in thy hand. She your maid, my mom not tripping. She not taking your place. I know who you is. in my life, that's your maid, mama. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I took her on as a wife. But at the end of the day, you are the head woman in charge around here. Do to her as it pleaseth thee. And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. Oh, so she thought she could be hoity toity with Sarai because she was having Abram's child. No, Hagar, you are still Hagar. There's still an order around here, and you won't be disrespectful to Sarai because you are now with child of mine. Relax yourself. Relax yourself. And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou? And whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly. Yet you're gonna have so many descendants, you don't even understand that it shall not be numbered for multitude, can't innumerable, you can't even count it. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, behold, thou art with child and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. Now there's a lot of interesting stories about Ishmael and everything that went on with Ishmael and how he ended up his history didn't really go the best. He ended up being almost ostracized and excommunicated. Him and the 12 sons of Ishmael ended up being almost excommunicated from the rest of the tribes and losing, access to to their blessing and their birthrights and stuff, and became almost a traveling band of sorts, if you will. And there are pastors who said they found remnants of these people here in the Americas. Uh, what, yo, Ghetto? Why you always saying crazy stuff? I know I'm always saying crazy stuff. There's a book right here called The Tribe of Ishmael, A Study in Social Degradation by Oscar Carlton McCullough. And people be like, well, who is Oscar Carlton McCullough? Let's see if it doesn't have anything on him here, but he is actually a pastor. He's an old pastor who studied a lot. Yeah, and it actually gets into some stuff about eugenics as well, as you saw that commenter say. It's very interesting. I do have a PDF of the book here. Oscar C. McCullough, A Study in Social Degradation, The Tribe of Ishmael, fourth edition, December 1891, from Leland Stanford Junior University, the charity organization Society. Shout out to them. The studies of Ray Lancaster into degradation, into degeneration are not only interesting, but to the student of physical science, but suggestive to the student of social science. Man, this is going to get into a lot because it's pretty much saying that because they became outcasts, that completely destroying their social status. And it's very interesting, the parallels that he makes to how that also happens to people in society today. It's very, very interesting read. It's a very interesting read. But we'll get into that, man. We will get into all of that. Let's get back over here. Ghetto, you always saying these tribes is in America and this and this and that. You ain't got no proof. I understand. I don't. You right. Encyclopedia of Indianapolis. What is this? Indianapolis, Indiana. Tribe of Ishmael. Indiana Eugenics Study. Oscar Carlton McCullough, July 2nd, 1843 to December 10th, 1891. Social gospel minister, civic leader, and social worker. Oscar C. McCullough, born in Fremont, Ohio, eldest of 5 children. Uh, yeah, man, 1877. arrived in Indianapolis as pastor of the Plymouth Church and began leading the congregation with a social gospel mission, called for structural solutions, social justice, equal opportunity. James Frank of the Township Trustee's Office in McCullough worked for 10 years compiling histories on 250 families and 5,000 individuals. So they compiled the history on 250 families and five. So they did their genealogy, maybe. Wright and McCullough presented their findings at the 1890 National Conference on Charities and the so-called tribe of Ishmael, as the so-called tribe of Ishmael. Woo! 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 Let me blow this up. Let me blow that up because I understand. I understand again. I'm in the IndieEncyclopedia.org. Oscar Carlton McCullough. Woo! Woo! Minister, social services leader from Ohio. Received his education in Portage, Wisconsin, at the Eastman Business School in Poughkeepsie, New York, and the Chicago Theological Seminary. So this man was classically trained in theological studies. In 1870, he was ordained as minister of the First Congregation Church in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Whew. Woo. Woo. 1877, McCullough arrived in Indianapolis as the pastor of Plymouth Church and began leading the congregation with a social gospel mission. Whoa. James Frank Wright of the Township Trustee's Office in McCullough worked for 10 years compiling histories of on 250 families and 5,000 individuals. Wright and McCullough presented their findings at the 1890 National Conference of Charities and Correction as the so-called tribe of Ishmael. Woo! Oh man, the tribe of Ishmael, huh? That's what he decided to call his study. Huh? Oh no, not the tribe of Ishmael. The tribe of Ishmael, Indiana Eugenics Study. Reverend Oscar Carlton McCullough became interested in the poor of Indianapolis and how society could provide relief for them. He served both as the pastor of the Plymouth Congregation Church and president of the Indianapolis Benevolent Society. He encountered a group that he labeled the Ishmaelites and described him in his diary on January 28th, 1878. They are a wandering lot of beings, marrying, intermarrying, cohabitating, etc. They live mostly outdoors in the river bottoms in old houses. They are largely illegitimate, subject to fits. They are hardly human beings. Mm-mm-mm. This is crazy. The traveling Ishmaelites. Mm. Mm-mm-mm. And as we get into what happened with Ishmael, we're going to line it up and see if what this pastor is alleging this group of people in Indianapolis is doing is similar to what would have happened to the tribes of Ishmael. But let's keep going. Let's keep going. Now, Sarai, Abraham's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid, and it may be that I obtain a child through her. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, and later Abram dwelt 10 years, and he gave her. Okay, yep. We've read this. We've read this. And the angel of the Lord found her. We've read that. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction, and he will be a wild man. He will be a wild man. Oh, what? Like somebody who just lives outside, somebody who's just a vagabond traveling about homeless. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand will be against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And she called the name of the Lord that spake unto her, Thou God seest me. For she said, Here have I also looked here after him that seeth me. Wherefore the well was called Berlaha Roy. Behold, it was between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. And Abram was 64 years old. 66 years old. That just means 86. When Hagar bare Ishmael to Abram. Chapter 17, the covenant of circumcision. We here. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, so he's 99 now, the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be thou perfect. And I will make a covenant between me and thee, and I will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked to him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee, and I will make thee exceeding fruitful. And I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee, and their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee, and the land wherein thou art a stranger, all of the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man among you shall be circumcised. This was the covenant that Abraham was to keep with the Most High. Now, the problem came with this covenant as the tribes scattered, the tribes had infighting, the tribes went to war with one another. Other people came and conquered the tribes, and the tribes were destroyed in that way. And all of those things created a situation where a lot of people lost the understanding of what the oaths were that they had to keep. So it is said that in the new covenant, which some people don't subscribe to, but we're studying the entirety of the book. We're not just studying parts we feel like we want to read. And it is understood that a circumcision of the heart is what is truly needed, and we can get to that. Actually, let me pull that up real quick. Let me pull up another. While I pull this up. Oh, I am so sorry. So be wildin', y'all. I do be wildin'. I believe we were on 17 and 8. (17 and 10), excuse me. So let me see if I can get this here. As we see here in the book of Romans, but he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, meaning not physically. Who praise is not of men, but of God. Um, Also, there's this one. Uh, see, this comes up easy for me. Let me see, because there's actually an understanding that if you sin, your circumcision, if you get a physical one, it no longer counts. So um let me see if I can find the verse. Forgive me, guys. I'm still getting right with all of these. I don't have every single one. I understand the concepts. Neither circumcision counts for anything, nor uncircumcision, but keeping the commandments of God. That's 1 Corinthians 7:19. Um, Romans chapter 2, verses 25 through 29. For circumcision is indeed of value if you obey the law, but if you break the law, your circumcision becomes uncircumcision. That's Romans 2:25. Pull that up for everybody to see. For the name of the Most High is blasphemed among the Gentiles through you, as it is written. For circumcision verily profiteth, if you keep it the law, meaning it's valuable, it's great and it's good if you keeping the law. And yes, absolutely. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. Like it's like you didn't even get it. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? And shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee? Who by letter and circumcision does transgress the law? For he is not a Jew, which one is outwardly, neither that is circumcision, which is outward in the flesh. But he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not the letter. Who praise is not of men but of God. Oh, okay. So the same Romans 2 verse is just breaking it down. The Jew condemned by the law. So let's read this whole thing real quick. Let's get a full understanding. The Jew condemned by the law. Behold, thou art called a Jew. Stop it. Wasn't even no J back then. a a retest of the law, but I mean this is Romans, so all right, they're around Greek time, so okay, whatever, fine. And makest thy boast of God, and knowest his will, and approvest the things that are more excellent, being instructed out of the law, and art confident that thou and art confident that thou thyself art a guide of the blind, a light of them which are in darkness, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of babes, which hast the form of knowledge and the truth in the law. Thou therefore which teachest another, teachest thou not thyself? Thou therefore which teachest another, teachest thou not thyself? Like when you teach other people, you also get the benefit of learning and relearning that material and understanding it from a deeper perspective. Thou that preachest of man should not steal, dost thou steal? Right, like you're also edifying yourself, you're also reminding yourself, you're also compounding these lessons into yourself. Ideally, thou that sayest that man should not commit adultery, dost thou commit adultery? Thou that abhorrest idols, dost thou commit sacrilege? Of course not. God forbid that you would be out there teaching these things and not also edifying yourself, and not also reminding yourself, and not also reteaching yourself, and not also reclaiming this knowledge and information for yourself. God forbid. Thou that makest thy boast of the law through breaking the law, dishonoreth thou God. Thou that makest thy boast of the law through breaking the law, dishonoreth thou God? Whew. For the name of the God is blasphemed among Gentiles through you, as it is written. For circumcision verily profiteth, if thou keepest the law. It is very good to do this if you're going to keep the law. But if thou be a breaker of the law, circumcision is made uncircumcision. And this is why sometimes people have an issue with getting children circumcised. Yes, I understand it's the law that after 8 days, you're supposed to do that to a child. But if a child doesn't know right from wrong, if a child doesn't know good from bad, if a child is not being raised to keep the law, and you just go get your child circumcised because it's the thing that everybody does to their children. They just let the hospital just circumcise their sons. They just let the hospital just circumcise their sons. That has nothing to do with religion. And then their sons get up and they're cheating, they're stealing, they're lying, they're robbing, they, sleeping with women and not making them their wives. The circumcision is uncircumcision. It wasn't even done. It has no value. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? And shall not uncircumcision, which is done by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee who by the letter and circumcision does transgress the law? Whew. An uncircumcised person who's keeping the law has the authority to judge those who are circumcised but transgress the law. For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh. But he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of God. So you doing all these circumcisions because the hospital telling you to do it and this and that, and the priest telling you to do it, the pastor telling you to do it, and you getting baptisms and you doing all these sacraments, but you are doing this for the praise to praise men, not God, because you haven't circumcised your heart. You haven't understood. You haven't eaten the scroll and made them bitter on your stomach, but sweet on your tongue. You have not taken the time to really understand and digest these things. And can a child do that? No. So some people would argue, should a child get a circumcision, understanding that they're supposed to keep this law when they don't have the ability to consciously acknowledge keeping the law? So at that point, it's like the parents are making the oath on behalf of the child, which is fine in one sense because they are the child's parents. And if you raise the child up in the way they should go, that they may keep that way all the days of their life. But again, so many parents are not doing this within a church infrastructure or within church boundaries or within a church construct. So many people are only doing it because it's a cultural norm, and the nurses, the doctors, hey, you want to circumcise your child before you get them up out of here. Or when you bring your child back for that checkup, you want to circumcise your child before your child gets older, blah 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 blah. But he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of God. Come on, man. Don't praise men, praise God. We're going to continue on. Genesis 17:11. And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, and every man your child in your generations. He that is born in your house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And if the uncircumcised man child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. And God said unto Abraham, as for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. And I will bless her and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. And then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed and said in his heart, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? And Abraham said unto God, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and I will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. Mm-mm-mm. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in next year. And he left off talking with them, and God went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael his son and all that were born in his house. I love this. This is so interesting. Because a lot of people like to make the argument that, there's no physical descriptions of God, there's no physical descriptions of angels. It's very interesting. I'm not saying all angels have the same descriptions. I am of the understanding of these things to some small degree, but there are angels who can take physical forms. And to say that would be impossible, then it's like almost saying that the God who's the creator of all these things can't make it possible, and to me is just a bit of a disingenuous statement. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Mm. Excuse me. And he left off talking with him, and God went up from Abraham, and Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were brought with his money, and every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the self same day as God had said unto him. And Abraham was 90 years old and 9 when he circumcised the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. In the self same day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son, and all the men of his house born in the house and bought with the money of the stranger were circumcised with him. Verse 18, the birth of Isaac promised. And the Lord had appeared, and the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he asked them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground and said, my Lord, now if I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, and I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on. For therefore are ye come to your servant? And they said, so do, and thou hast said. And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah and said, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, kneading and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran unto the herd and fetched a calf, tender and good, and gave it unto the young man. And he hastened to dress it, meaning he whipped that thing up real quick, put the 11 herbs and spices and all that seasoning on that thing, and peppers and onions, and he made that thing ready, boy. Put a glaze on that mofo so they could get to cooking that thing and make a sweet savor. Barbecue, boy. And he took butter and milk and the calf, which he had dressed, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. Who did eat? These 3 men of the Lord? Oh no. Oh, they can eat, huh? We playing games. And now Sarah and Abram are old and well stricken with age. I'm so sorry. Did eat. Genesis 18:9. And they said unto him, where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women, meaning, she had stopped, having a cycle. She was no longer in traditional childbearing age. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And the Lord said unto Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh? Shall I of surety bear a child, which I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed, I will turn unto thee. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Where is your faith? At the time appointed, I will return unto thee, according to the time of life, and Sarah will have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And he said, nay, but thou didst laugh. So not only did she laugh, not only did she not have faith, she scoffed, and now she's trying to lie. He's like, I know you laughed. Chill out, Sarah, before this go left. Watch your mouth. Better yet, hold your tongue. And the men rose up from thence and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of earth shall be blessed in him. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. And the Lord said, because of the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come on to me. And if not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence and went toward Sodom. But Abraham stood yet before the Lord. And Abraham drew near and said, wilt thou destroy the righteous with the wicked? And he didn't have to do this. He didn't have to stick his neck out to try to, have this conversation and ask, what will you do to the righteous people that you find there? Yes, Sodom and Gomorrah is an evil place, and so many people have gotten hurt there. So many bad things have happened there. So many innocent people have gotten attacked and assaulted there. But what if there are any good people? See, this is what makes Abraham who he is. Peradventure, there be 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked. That be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And the Lord said, if I find Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes. And Abraham answered and said, behold, now I will take upon me to speak unto the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. So, he realizes that who is he to ask these? Like, I'm a nobody. I'm the dirt of the ground, man. Like you made my ancestor Adam out of. I'm the dust and the clay. You know what I mean? I'm the stardust, if you will. But and you represent the framers and the shapers, and I humbly understand that. But if you could just please listen to me for a moment, because what kind of man would I be if I didn't stand up for anyone who may be righteous in the city of Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, excuse me. What type of man would I be? Continues, peradventure, there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. What wilt thou destroy the city for a lack of 5? And he said, if I find 40 and 5, I will not destroy it. And he spake unto him yet again and said, peradventure, there shall be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for 40's sake. And he said unto him, Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure, that shall be 30. be found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord. Peradventure there shall be 20 found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for the 20's sake. And he said, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet this but once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for its 10's sake. And the Lord went his way. And as soon as he had left communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place. Think about that. That he was willing to risk completely angering the Lord to save the lives of 10 people in a city full of sin. That's what makes him different. That's what makes him different. And there came 2 angels to Sodom that evening. And Lot said in the gate of Sodom. And Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them. And he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him, and he entered into his house. And he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. They're like, dang, everybody want to feed us. We ain't come here for all. Listen, we appreciate the celebration. We appreciate y'all knowing who we is and taking care of us accordingly. But man, we came here to handle business. But all right, listen, we get it. We will eat. You ain't gonna stop our mission. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round. But both old and young, all the people from every quarter, and they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men in which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. And Lot went out at the door unto them, and shut the door after him, and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have 2 daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. Lot was, y'all don't think about this, family. Lot was willing to say, yo, have my daughters. Please. Y'all don't understand what these men are here to do. Now, some people say that's crazy. Why would Lot give up his daughters? I think Lot was in a desperate situation. If I put myself in the mind of Lot, I think he felt so desperate to try to not have the town be destroyed and watch all these people's lives be gone that he was willing to say anything, because he understood the level of bloodshed that was at the door. Man. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came into sojourn, and he needs be a judge. Now we will deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to the break of the door. But the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house, and shut to the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said unto Lot, hast thou here any besides son-in-law, and thy sons and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city? Bring them out of this place, for we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxen great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked onto his sons-in-law. Oh, and when the morning arose, Then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy two daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. Damn. So the son-in-laws didn't believe him. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand and upon the hand of his wife and upon the hand of his two daughters, the Lord being merciful unto them. And they brought him forth, and they set them out without or outside of the city. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, Escape for thy life, not look behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And Lot said unto them, Oh, not so, my Lord. Behold, now thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast showed unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me, and I die. Behold, now this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. It is not a little one. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live. And he said unto them, See, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow this city for which thou hast spoken. Haste thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till thou be come thither. Therefore, the name of this city was called Zoar. So they're like, all right, fine, whatever. Go to that little city over yonder. I get it. We get it. You can't escape to the mountains. You would need help to get to the mountains. Just go to that little city over there. Get away from here. And yeah, you call that little city Zoar. Fine. And we will destroy everything around Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire, excuse me, from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities, excuse me, and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities, that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abram got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all of the plain, and beheld, lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain. Excuse me. And his two daughters with him. For he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in the cave, he and his two daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us, after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass in the morrow, that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Now, some people say this is crazy. Why would they do this? But again, they didn't know where to find men at this point. The father was passing away, and they didn't want to not be able to have children. Thus were both daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab. This is the father of the Moabites onto this day. Whew. And the younger, who and those who may not know anything about the Moorish Science Temple of America and Noble Drew Ali, he in his Circle 7 Quran, which is one of the penultimate books of the Moorish Science Temple, one of the books he put together for their studies and their understanding of their culture and religion. He claims that they are descendants of the Moabites. And there is some accuracy to some of their lineage tracing back there. And yeah, so it gets interesting when you look at the Moors and the Moors being kicked out of Spain, and the Battle of Granada, the verses, and them having to travel out and expand around the world. Um, Many of them are Moabites. And the younger, she also bare a son and called his name Ben-Ami, the same as the father of the children of Ammon, on to this day. Ammon. I'm playing, man. I'm playing, man. Cool. Like, I hope y'all are enjoying this so far. Let's do chapter 20, and I think I'm gonna call it there today. Um, as always, guys, as always, any questions, comments, critiques, criticisms, you know how to tap in. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. Genesis chapter 20. And Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country and dwelled between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned into Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, Behold, thou art but a dead man, for the woman which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. This still going on today. Dudes is still dying. Messing with other brothers' wives. We ain't tired of dying behind this yet. We ain't tired of dying behind this yet. But Abimelech had not come near her. And he said, Lord, wilt thou slay a righteous nation? Said he not unto me, she is my sister. And she even herself said, he is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and innocency of my hands have I done this. And God said unto him in a dream, Yea, I know that thou did this in integrity of thy heart, for I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffered I thee not to touch her. Now therefore restore the man his wife, for he is a prophet, and he shall pray for thee, and thou shalt live. And if thou restore her not, know, know thou that thou shalt surely die, thou and all that are thine. Therefore Abimelech rose early in the morning and called his servants and told all these things in their ears, and the men were sore afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said unto him, What hast thou done unto us? And what have I offended thee, that thou hast brought on to me and on my kingdom a great sin? Thou hast done deeds unto me that ought not be done. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What sawest thou that thou hast done this thing? And Abraham said, Because I thought surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. And yet indeed she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And it came to pass, when God caused me to wander from my father's house. And some people would wonder, well, isn't this against the law of Moses? But remember, Moses is not here yet, so the law hadn't been established. If there is no law, there is no sin. And it came to pass because sin is the transgression of the law. And it came to pass when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said unto her, This is thy kindness, which shalt show unto me at every place whither we shall come. Say of me, he is my brother. And Abimelech took sheep and oxen and manservants and women servants and gave them unto Abraham and restored him Sarah his wife. And Abimelech said, Behold, my land is before thee. Dwell where it pleaseth thee. And unto Sarah he said, Behold, I have given thy brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, he is to thee a covering of the eyes. And unto all that are with thee, and all with other, thus was she reproved. So Abraham prayed unto God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his maidservants, and they bare children. For the Lord had fast closed up all the wounds of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Isaac is born. Do we have time to get through 21, family? Let's get through 21 before we get out of here. Why not, right? I mean, why not? We came here to study. You guys are being amazing. I super appreciate it. This has been an amazing discussion and a discourse. I hope you guys have learned something. I hope I've helped energize your day in some way. I pray that the Most High continues to shower blessings on you and your family, because we know that God is we serve is a good God. We know that the God we serve is a good God. We know that the God we serve is a good God, a righteous God, a fruitful God, a God that is always there for us, even in our darkest hours, even when we've turned our back a million times. If we would but take one step toward God. That doesn't mean our soul may be saved, but what it means is we may be able to restore ourselves and restore our families, that we may save the souls of our children. Because what do we do this for if not to make sure that the future is better off than we had it? Some people may be like, well, if my soul ain't being saved, I don't give a damn. I'm not going to do nothing to try to save nobody else's soul. Them kids could get it themselves. Them kids could do their own thing. I could care less what happens with them kids, because you are a damn fool. You are a damn fool. You are a damn fool. Nothing can be said that's worse than that. I could care less what happens to these kids if my soul will not be saved. If you have already condemned yourself to the hellfire, yo, this misery loves company thing that so many people in our community be on. It's it's truly disturbing, man. It's truly disturbing. If I know I have ruined my life, if I'm an alcoholic, let me go at some point when I quit and I try to get myself right. Let me now go be a counselor at AA. Let me now go help some other people get right. Because if I'm not doing that, what am I doing? What am I doing with my time? What am I doing with myself? How I see how bad this problem is. Pardon me 1 second, y'all. I see how bad this problem is, honey. Infused honey at that. Sheesh. Mm-mm-mm. Infused honey. God damn. If I see how bad this problem is, why would I want to bestow that on somebody else? If I'm truly healed now, if I'm truly saved now, if I'm truly understanding better now, there's no way I want somebody else to go through that. Y'all see what the IG is, man. You know what the email is. Tap in with me, man. Tap in with me, man. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. Do 21 real quick. Sorry, the voice is a little scratchy. Genesis 21:1, and the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, in set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God had made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. And she said, who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck? For I have borne him in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. Sarah turns against Hagar. So weaned pretty much means like he's off the tit. You know, he's a little older, he's a little chunkier, he's a little healthier. He might be about 4 or 5 at this point. It's a celebration. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be the heir with my son, even with Isaac. And the thing was very grievous in Abram's sight because of his son. And the son said unto Abraham, let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad and because of thy bondswoman. And all that Sarah hath said unto me, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shalt thy seed be called. we're gonna pause it right there today, family. Thank you so much for coming and rocking and vibing. His Ghetto Point of View at Gmail on all platforms. Peace and love.